Ich sitze hier mit dem Creative Director des Open-World-Spiels Watch Dogs, Jonathan Moret, und dem werde ich einfach mal ein paar Fragen stellen. Okay, first off, this was a very impressive showing at the Sony press conference. We've seen quite an interesting level with lots of interaction with the environment, lots of hacking going on. Is this a prototypical level or mission that's going on in Watch Dogs? What kind of gameplay can we expect also? What tasks will the game demand from us players next to hacking surveillance cameras and giving tips to our nerd friend?
Well, there's a lot of question in there.
Like, sorry,
that's fine. Like we have a lot of different activities in the game. So like it's an open world with hacking on top of it, but there's also shooting and driving. And the vision has always been, if you want to make a game that feels new to people, there's not 2,000 ways of doing that. Like you need to make sure that when the player plays, his brain consider completely alien options, stuff he never considered before, all the time. Like, you know, if you play a game and you face a situation and you feel like your option is a gun, then you played that. But if you start considering traffic lights, cameras, instructions to VIPs, like stealth at the same time, while you might have to use your gun, but also act something else to create a blackout to escape the cops. So all of those elements needs to spin in your brain at a split of a second all the time. And if you put the controller down and you can realize that you always considered those as a valuable option, then you're not playing in the same way. Then you're not considering the same things and it feels new. So today and also at this E3, this mission in particular is very flexible. You could have done it traditional stealth. You could have done it like go and seek him and then afterwards we gun or blaze out of there. But we wanted to prove and show people that there are ways of doing it where you just use hacking and you don't move, because that's stuff that people are not used to. So like the amount of gameplays and possibilities and differentiations are very vast. I think the challenge on a design perspective is to teach those new tools to the player. It's like saying, I know how to play guitar, now I'm going to teach you a language of music you don't understand. That's long, that's hard. If we can pull that off at the beginning of the game and make sure the player gets comfortable with that layer, then he's going to consider it as a viable option, and only then he's going to say to his friend, well, it really feels fresh.
Okay, and one thing in open world games, at least for me and I'm surely for other players, is to just walk around and do stupid shit out of missions. And now we've got the new hacking features, so what kind of stupid shit can I do just walking down the street just to amuse myself?
That's interesting. You can do a lot of that, like, you know, like hacking traffic lights, having fun with bridges, having fun with even small little things. You know, one thing that's fun about hacking is, or hackers in general, is, you know, you have those cool guys who are really good with computers that goes on YouTube and have some fun with hacking. We wanted to have that in the game too. So if you wander around and you see music playing on a Wi-Fi speaker, you can just hack it and change it if you don't like it. And then you impose your own music with people. You can have a lot of fun like that. And we're also bending the rules from time to time. If you see like kids' toys and stuff like that, anything that's remotely controlled, we really want to have fun with those too. And the thing I like also is the home invasion part, or like, should I say the privacy invasion part, where you know, you start with thousands of texto conversation and phone calls you can listen to, which sometimes are funny, brings a lot more flavor to a city, right? Because that's, in the end, I think it's the people that live in a city that has the biggest impact on its identity. So we wanted to have that layer. And when you get inside homes and webcams, it makes you think, first of all, about free Wi-Fi and what that means to a certain extent. It also makes you witness moment of life. You know, like you cannot always put kids on the street in the kind of game we're making for obvious reasons, but you can put a glimpse of those things, like the kids' presence and nice moment, like nice little moment of life that you can relate to, that makes you smile. It doesn't have to always be very dark. And other time you can explore stuff that maybe you didn't want to see, like loneliness or an elder person that is alone and nobody talks to, and then that makes you a bit sad. And then balancing between those two kind of emotions all the time as you're following the story of Aiden Pierce, I think helps the player appreciate the world for what it is, and remember that you know, human beings are sophisticated. They're not just like hopeless or entirely positive.
That's very interesting. Also, having fun with bridges is a nice little quote. But talking about the main character, Aiden, he's a hacker, so hackers usually have this cliche of being a bit for themselves, a bit back out of society, not the most social skills, but he's kind of a hard guy. In the E3 demo at the Sony press conference, he just killed some people. He just shot them, point blank range. So can you tell me a bit more about what's going on with this guy?
Yeah.
And why he's also kind of ruthless?
He can be ruthless. That depends on what the player does. Like in the demo, like we're using a contextual takedown system. So this system, the player can define how he plays with it. Like if it's a bad guy and you have your gun drawn, yeah, you're gonna make it lethal takedown. But if you're stealth and you take him down, you're not gonna kill him. In the case of the police, when you take them down, they're always going to be non-lethal takedown, but you can still take your gun out and shoot them in the head. So, the ruthlessness of the character is more supported than suggested. The one thing that forced, should I say. And when we go into a demo like E3, one thing you really want to make sure is provoke those questions by showing the worst ones, so you can explain those things, but also to see if the people react to them. Because if you're making a game that's supposed to be serious, where there's this shades of gray, this reputation system, the media are talking about how you play, for it to be meaningful, the player needs to feel bad sometimes. They need to get to that level where, for their own sake or their own ethical code, they want to back off from it. And then you want to make sure you have all those options for them. Going stealth, even going stealth in cars to not cause all this mayhem with the car chases with cops. You're not forced to cause accident. And if you cause accident, then you should have dynamic, civilian rescue moments so that you can undo what you've done. All of those things are a gigantic pain to build, but they bring something to the table. When we started the project, I had a nice observation, for myself for the project, where my wife is a nurse. She's come from a very different world than me, and I'm ashamed to say it, but when I drive on a highway together and we see an accident on the other side, and I could sometimes look at it and have this little microscopic small moment when I'm I wonder what the accident was like, which is a terrible thing to say, because our first reaction is, oh shit, I wonder how they are. And we're not really good in game about I wonder how they are. We're more oh, cool accident, multiple 200, awesome. And I think it's about time we bring that level so that players don't necessarily feel like they're bad persons doing it, but at least they're making a choice about it, and we're a bit more responsible and more nuanced about what a city should be.
It's a very noble thought you've going on there. One thing you also showed, especially in the demo after here at the Ubi booth, is that your game can be invaded by other players that try to hack you. So how exactly can I imagine this in playing the game? If I want to hack another one's game, how do I get, what's the interface to do this? What possibilities do I have, and what do I gain from that?
Oh, there's a few ways of triggering it. The one thing we do is we merge it into the free roaming in a nice way, so it never feels like this annoying pop-ups that arrive all the time. It needs to feel completely natural. So when you play it, you could have someone who end up being in your game, telling you, and winning at telling you, leaving, and you never knew about it. And from your perspective, it doesn't change anything until you tell someone else. And now you tell someone, and at some point you're like, wait a minute, I did that mission before. And then you go back to your game, you're successful, then you do another one, and you're like, there's someone in here, I'm not sure. And you create that little paranoia that maybe someone is there. If you manage to figure it out, you're going to have a huge reward, but that's very hard to do when you're playing your own game. We have other scenarios like the one we've shown today where you get hacked directly. This is where you're more like, oh shit, there's someone here, I need to find him. So this works pretty simply. You can go into what we call the grid and find people out there. And for rewards and stuff, you can decide to go and take a contract to hack those persons. And then you seamlessly get into their game and you start hacking them. They need to defend themselves, and when the thing finishes, we dynamically separate you afterwards. And the important part is at this moment, we have a firewall activated. So if the player decides to retaliate and start hacking back people, of course the firewall is going to go down. But if you want to break, then he's protected for a while. He can also pull the plug if he doesn't want to. That's always an option. But in the way we designed it, it feels almost like it's another free roaming activity. So it's not that annoying. It's the opposite. It creates this new emergent moment that is not just about shooting other people. It has more depth to it, more nuance.
It seems to me this is one of the big things of the new console generation, just adding some online features and some connectivity into a single player experience. You think this will be a huge part of next gen, and what are the chances of these features, and what are the difficulties? Because people are assholes. They are, really are.
Yeah, well, actually, there's an interesting. It's an interesting question. Like the way I see it, this generation, this being the new generation of console, I don't think it's about machine anymore. I think it's about the player. It's about, I think the player will define what next gen will be. By that, what I mean is, we're all changing in a society. Our relationship with internet is evolving every day, and I think that as designers, we have to consider that. As players, they have to try and open their mind to new ways of playing. And the reason why I'm saying they will shape it is because we will have to adapt to their reaction. And I think we need to be bold. We need to try new stuff. We need to learn about how people will collectively react to those things and adjust accordingly. And the best way to do that is to avoid those old school design lazy statements. And I'm not saying that to be pretentious, but saying something like, oh no, we can have someone in my game, he's going to fuck it up. That's a lazy way of saying I don't want to design that thing. It sounds hard. But I think it needs to be done. And people are way more ready than they were 10 years ago. That is the kind of exploration I would do. Would that be the big thing of next gen, that specifically single player, multiplayer, merge? I don't think that's going to be specifically that. I think what will happen is we're going to learn how collectively society wants to play together beyond just shooting themselves in the face. And by trying that, I think we're going to discover exciting thing in the next couple of years.
It's very interesting, and one thing that Ubi also very much embracing. Ubi is jumping new in the next gen every time, and one feature of next gen consoles is a second screen, and pretty much every Ubi game has it, and your game has it too. So can you elaborate a bit more on generally how you use this feature, and also what's your opinion on that? How could this develop in the future?
What I like about it is, first in our case, like 4 years ago, we knew we wanted to do that. But the requirement for us was it needs to be real time, and it needs to be real time anywhere. Like to us, like Watch Dogs, you need to be aside the couch and do a real time thing on a second screen was not enough. Like we're talking about connectivity, so you can be on the bus and you can be in real time, like through 3G with your friends, and that was important to us because when we started to talk about Watch Dogs. It was all about, okay, what will be the future experiences? Not from a machine standpoint and power, but how do we live our life? How that's going to impact how playing games means? And one of them was obviously connectivity. So we ended up saying, wouldn't it be cool to make a game where the metaphor for online is online? So that you can do anything you want for the game, and the player never feels like he's being done by some kind of Me Too feature. And I think this is where it started. So we put people very hardly on it to make sure that it worked. And today it's pretty cool. People see it and they never feel like we're just saying, yeah, we needed that because everybody have that. It feels more like, nah, we're talking about connectivity in the game. So we need to bring this extra gaming connectivity part where people can connect with you. And it just reinforces the idea also of, two players being able to hack each other. Like it all goes to this sense that everybody is watching. And there's definitely a little bit more about, the conspiracies and what's really going on behind Watch Dogs and the higher picture that ties into that. And I think that makes the entire universe a lot more emergent and interesting.
That's cool. Thank you very much for this insight in Watch Dogs, and I'm very much looking forward to the final game. And good luck with it. Have fun and crunch.
Thank you.